Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Morning, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me here today on the free show, Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. That is a Monday through Friday show. We go about an hour each day, Monday through Friday. I host Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman hosts on Wednesdays. And we have a good time. We talk football, we talk baseball, we talk basketball. On occasion, we'll talk hockey, not as frequently. On occasion, we'll do some wagering and that kind of thing, not as frequently. We usually focus mainly on seasonal fantasy here on the show, with a main focus with baseball and football, as you're probably well aware. Tell a friend, pass the word. Free show here. You can watch us live at youtube.com/Elite Plus Network, facebook.com/Fantasy HQ, Fantasy Guru HQ, excuse me. In those two spots, Facebook and on YouTube, you can actually watch us live and also leave comments and ask questions. You can also try that because you can watch us live on YouTube, on Twitter X at Fantasy Guru site. And I even saw a question yesterday from Twitter X. So that maybe that's working. Here we go. Maybe that's working too. But the bottom line is, for sure, if you watch us on YouTube or Facebook Live, you can leave comments in there. And there we go. Here we go. Look at that. I'm seeing an X comment already. So yes, that works now too. Here we go. We got it working. So anytime you're watching live on Twitter X, live on Facebook, or live on YouTube, you can send a comment or question in, and we'll address it here on the show. Again, I'm Ray Flowers. My Twitter handle is at the Ray Flowers. It's my Instagram handle, my Blue Sky handle, on and on and on, at the Ray Flowers. For those of you that missed kind of what we're doing this week, I'll reiterate it here again today, and then we'll move forward with the plan for the show today. Jeff Mans obviously is mentioned in Discord over at fantasyguru.com and on social media that he's dealing with an issue with his family. So we wish him and the family well. Jeff is going to be out of the office all week. He'll return next Monday. So we wish Jeff and his family the best. So what's happening here is, just like yesterday when I was on SiriusXM, I'll be back on today. Today and tomorrow on the SiriusXM show. That's 3 to 6 Monday through Friday, the Elite Sports Show. That show yesterday was me solo for 3 hours. Still have my voice, which is good. Today it'll be myself and Justin Fensterman for 3 hours. Tomorrow it'll be Justin and I for 3 hours. And Friday it'll be Ted Schuster and I for 3 hours. Thursday, we may not have a show. We got some things going on here. We're trying to figure that out. But at least Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday will be rocking and rolling on the Elite Sports Show for sure. Today and tomorrow, Justin and I will be talking an hour of football, an hour of baseball, an hour of basketball. Tomorrow, hour of football, hour of baseball, hour of basketball. Friday, maybe we'll do some baseball with Ted. We'll probably do a lot of football, Core 4, and all that kind of stuff. So look for that over on Elite Sports. Again, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, 3 to 6 Eastern Time. What are we talking about today? Well, there you go. We got to review Monday Night Football, which is a playoff game. So it's not really Monday Night Football, but yeah. The Rams and the Vikings game didn't go according to plan. So we'll talk about that here. We'll kind of break things down there. We'll discuss a little bit the MLB seasonal guide, all the products over at fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can get access to them. We'll talk a little bit about two topics that I addressed on the Sirius show yesterday. Why overall rankings lists are useless, and why you should be using the tiering model when you draft. So we'll do a little bit of that. And in about 25 or so minutes, as we do every Tuesday here on the show, Armando Marsal will join us. Last week, we reviewed the quarterback position. This week, we'll review the running back position as we look back at 2024. We'll obviously do wide receivers and tight ends in the next couple of weeks with Armando to keep that dream alive. As you can see there on the screen, you can get anything over at fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. The baseball products live now. You can get seasonal baseball, wagering baseball, DFS baseball. You get all three of them if you want. I'm heavily involved in all three. In fact, you could make the argument I'm the lead there for the baseball product at FG. So heavily involved there. If you like my work here on the show or on SiriusXM, you'll get a lot of me if you do the baseball package. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You get the MVP plan right now, which is basically everything that isn't football and baseball. When I mean everything, I mean everything. NASCAR, PGA, MMA, soccer, basketball, hockey. Am I repeating myself? I don't know. It's everything, man. Horse racing. That's the MVP plan. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. And as always, you can send a note if you have any questions. Support@fantasyguru.com. Support@fantasyguru.com. All right, let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about last night. And again, it didn't go as according to plan. Rams defeated the Vikings 27-9. Not a total shock that the Rams won the game. It's not a total shock. But the way they won, the way the game went was shocking. It was 27-3 at one point. And the Rams, the Rams beat the Vikings, and the questions began. Start with the Vikings side of things. Obviously, the Vikings went 14-3. They had a chance to win the NFC. They lost to the Lions late in the year. They fell for the second time to the Rams this year. They have 4 losses this season, and 2 of them are the Rams. The Vikings have a very odd situation in an offseason that's going to be fascinating to watch. Sam Darnold, who was 5th in the NFL in passing yards, who was 5th in the NFL in touchdown passes, he went for over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. That's a pretty magical season for any quarterback, certainly for Sam Darnold. He struggled in the last 2 games. The last 2 games, the Vikings scored 18 points, 9 points in each of those games. And Darnold played 2 of his poor games all season. And so now we get this guy, again, 5th in the league in touchdowns, 5th in the league in passing yards. Led us to a 14-3 record. What's that guy's outlook for 2025? Is he going to be with the Vikings? Are the Vikings going to bring him back on a short-term deal? Are they going to bring in another veteran for less money? Are they just going to turn things over to J.J. McCarthy, provided his knee's okay? It's pretty remarkable that a quarterback can throw for 35 touchdowns, lead a team to a 14-3 record, and people want him gone. Kind of what we got going on with Sam Darnold. So it's a really weird scenario. Now, Darnold went for 245, 1-1 last night. And, it's easy to pick on him. But as should also be noted, it was a wild card record, 9 sacks for the Rams last night. The Rams were in Darnold's grill the whole game. They had the Rams defensive front, had the Vikings offensive front bent over a barrel, and they were just giving it to him. That's just the Rams dominated. Their defense dominated. And we talked about this on the Elite Sports Show yesterday a little bit. The Rams defense the last month of the season and now into the playoffs has been really good. They're averaging 13.5 points a game. So now after 9 last night, it's even lower. The last month, they're allowing 12 points a game. The Rams defense is really coming up big. And they came up big last night. And Darnold is the one that'll pay the price for that, because the quarterback always pays the price and always gets the success, gets the adulation and the blame. That's how it goes. But Darnold had a magical season. We'll see where he ends up. If he's not back with the Vikings, which again is certainly possible, is someone else signing him to a big deal to be a quarterback? Maybe it's a 2-year, $45 million deal. Maybe it's not a huge contract for a quarterback. Maybe something like that. We'll see. It'll be fascinating to see what happens to Sam Darnold. In terms of the pass catchers last night, a lot has been made, and it should continue to be made, about the fact that, Justin Jefferson in a do-or-die game, in a game you're behind, in a game that you throw the ball 40 times, he saw 8 targets, tied for the team lead with Jordan Addison. Okay. 5 catches for 58 yards. He didn't have a catch in the second half. You've got arguably the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver in football. I think most people would agree with that statement. And your season's on the line, and you're behind, and you're in catch-up mode, and you got to throw the ball, and 5 catches for 58 yards. I don't care what the coverage is. You got to get the ball. We talk about this all the time on the show. You got to get the ball to him. You got to do it. Just have to. Didn't. He goes out on a whimper, which is disappointing. He was frustrated last night. You could see that. He had, again, huge numbers, 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns, 100 catches. He had a huge season, but his last couple of weeks kind of muted as well. Jordan Addison also had those 8 targets that I mentioned. Addison was even worse, 3 catches for 29 yards. And, it's really easy. When a quarterback, just like Baker Mayfield, when a quarterback is throwing for 35 or 40 touchdowns, everyone in the offense seems like, yeah, we can roll this guy out there. But we have to remember Jalen McMillan, who 2 balls for 41 yards or whatever it was in his weekend game, and Jordan Addison here, 3 catches for 29 yards. When you're the second wide receiver on your own team, which is what McMillan was and what Addison was, when you're the second wide receiver on your own team and you've got a Hall of Fame bound player, Evans or Jefferson, there's going to be moments where you benefit from the coverage getting rolled over that way and you have big games. There's going to be moments where you just have a good matchup and you have success. And there's going to be moments where, you're riding second fiddle. last night, again, the performance wasn't there for Addison. He did get the 8 targets, which matched Jefferson for the team lead, so it wasn't like they didn't involve him. The Vikings just couldn't sustain anything offensively because that pressure that was in Darnold's face the whole game. TJ Hockenson had one of his better games since his return. Not saying much because he was a real disappointment in the regular season. A lot of people drafted him in the 10th, 12th round, held on to him, waiting for him to have that big push toward the end. He was perfectly fine as your starting tight end. Didn't do anything. Hockenson is a guy that should be catching like he did last night, 5 for 64 every week. He also had the touchdown last night, so it was a huge game. He should be catching 5 balls for 60 yards a week. TJ Hockenson. I mean, especially when the quarterback's thrown for 35 touchdowns and over 4,000 yards, right? So disappointing season for Hockenson. Did go out on a high note. He was basically the only offensive performer last night for the Vikings that lived up to or surpassed expectations in that game against the Rams. Again, he had a solid effort on that side. And then finally, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, 13 carries for 48 yards, 3 catches for 12 yards. When you're in a situation where you got to throw the ball 40 times and you're, again, down at halftime 24-3, you're not going to run the ball much. So Jones will look toward 2025. Where is he going to play? What team's he going to be on? What's his contract going to be? What's his role going to be? All these things to be determined with Aaron Jones. Now, on the Rams side of things, won a football game, and the Rams are rolling. They steamrolled into the playoffs. Another victory again. I mentioned the fact that their defense has done really good work of late. What's going on with this offense? I mean, they had a turnover touchdown last night. Matthew Stafford did throw for 2 touchdowns, but 209 yards. Let's pull this up real quick as we're talking. What is his? Is that his high in 5 games, 4 games? Let's see. Matthew Stafford. His last handful of games here down the stretch, 160, 110, 189, 209. So the 209 yards was his best outing in 4, and only his second outing in 6 of 200 passing yards. And, we said this a lot down the stretch with Stafford. He's kind of just taking up space right now. And again, he had the 2 touchdown passes last night. So he was a passable fantasy play. But and that, bleeds right into the receivers here. We'll talk about Kyren Williams. He actually had a receiving score. Davis Allen had a receiving score. Puka Nacua, 9 targets. Okay. 9 of 27 passes, a 33% target share. Huge. Okay. 5 catches for 44 yards. Terribly disappointing effort. Puka Nacua has a disappointing effort, giving you 9.5 PPR points. Cooper Kupp gave you 4. Cooper Kupp is not really a part of this offense right now. He had 1 catch for 29 yards. Now, we can all talk about Cooper Kupp losing a step and not being 100%. Oh, that's fine. Okay. But what the hell has happened to Cooper Kupp? His last 4 games, he has 5 catches for 82 yards. Not an average of 5 for 82. Total. He's seen 10 targets in 4 games. So all of the struggles in the offense through the air, the struggles with Matthew Stafford, Puka has basically played through that and been effective. He's the only one in the passing attack. Cooper Kupp, this is the 2nd game in a row that Cooper Kupp has caught 1 pass. 3 of the last 4 games, he's had 0 or 1 reception. Oof. The Rams can celebrate beating the Vikings last night, and that was a great victory, but they're not winning anything if they don't have any receivers other than Puka Nacua catching 4 passes. It's not happening. So they have got to figure out what the hell is going on with this offense. Right now, it's just dicey. In terms of the pass catchers, the guy that really stepped forward last night was Tyler Higbee, who caught 5 balls for 58 yards, tied for the team lead in receptions, set the team lead in terms of yards, missed half the game with injury. But he was blowing up against the Vikings last night. You saw Allen score that touchdown late. So Tyler Higbee was in line for a monster game, it seemed like, last night with that matchup with the Vikings. But again, it was still the top pass catcher. We'll have to monitor his health to see if he's available for the next game. Kyren Williams, as we discussed. Kyren Williams did have that receiving score, 3 catches for 16 yards and a touchdown. Okay. On the ground, 16 carries for 76 yards. A solid effort, but without the touchdown there. Are you disappointed? We say this all the time. Are you disappointed that your guy got you 16 points, 17 points? I said, no. Kyren was fine. 17 points in the PPR setup, we're good. Even in the non-PPR, he scored a touchdown and had 95 yards from scrimmage. Totally fine. We were hoping for a little bit better, sure, but it was totally fine. Remember that Ronnie Rivers had 3 carries, and that was it. So again, 16 of the 19 carries went to Kyren Williams as usual. Kyren Williams dominated the touches out of the backfield, and he got in the end zone to give him the leg up on the competition. So there we go. I don't know. The Rams are moving on. They got a matchup here against the Eagles. They're gonna have to do some things to beat that Eagles squad. Obviously, the Eagles are the favorite. They'll come in as the 2 seed. The Rams are the 4 seed. That sets the Commanders and the Lions on the other side. Lions expected to win that one, so we're probably going to get a Lions-Eagles NFC Championship. That's kind of what it's looking like right now. On the other side of things, the Bills and the Ravens, the game of the week, that's going to be exciting. And then the Texans and the Chiefs. Chiefs figure to beat the Texans. Lions figure to beat the Commanders. Eagles figure to beat the Rams. And then it's anybody's guess with the Bills and Ravens. Bills and Ravens is the winner of that, the Super Bowl champ. We'll find out as we move forward. So that's some football talk. We'll jump back into football in about 10, 15 minutes. Armando Marsal will come into the show. We reviewed quarterbacks last week. We'll review running backs this week with him. I want to talk a little bit of baseball here, and I think I saw some baseball here. There we go. I did see baseball. Cracker Jack said, I'm going to try MLB seasonal this year. What site is the best? What scoring system is the best? Could you advise? Yeah, and I when you say what site is the best, Crack Jack, I'm assuming which service provider, not which website, because the best website for advice is fantasyguru.com. There are a variety of scoring systems that you could avail yourself of. I personally favor Roto. That's the start. You go through this day one of the season to the end of the season. Most of the advice you will see in the fantasy space is 5x5 Roto. So that's the traditional one. It used to be 4x4, but 5x5 is a traditional setup from start to finish. If you want to play points league, the points league rankings just went up at fantasyguru.com. If you want to play points leagues, it's more like football in the sense that points leagues are almost all the points leagues, not all, but almost all points leagues are head-to-head. So it'll be a points league scenario like you're used to in football. It'll be a weekly matchup like you're used to in football. Those are kind of the two main ways to play it. I write articles and talk all the time about the differences. We'll have a whole week where we talk about the head-to-head game and all of that too, because I know that's a growing segment of the fantasy space. If it was my team, if it was my season, I'd want to play Roto. If you're going to try seasonal and you're not really involved, a head-to-head points league might be better because it's more closely related to what you're used to in football. In terms of what's the best site, I think there's pluses and minuses to every site. I've worked with all the sites at some point. I played on all the sites at some point. Sometimes I like the free agent section of it. Sometimes I like the lineup section of it. Sometimes I don't like. I do. I mean, really, I think it's up to you. I don't think there's, we last year had a connection with RT Sports. I think we will again. And I could say that RT Sports is a very clean website to use, very simple. If you play in one of the big box, if you go ESPN or Yahoo or CBS, make sure that you check the league settings, because there's a lot of leagues that'll be small or 8 or 10 teams. Maybe you only have 8 players active instead of, the deeper rosters, which could benefit you more, the more knowledge base you get. So check the scoring setup. But bottom line is really, I think any of the big providers could satisfy what you're looking to do. They all have pluses and minuses. Thanks for watching, Jack. And like you said, just get the VIP at half off and get it all. Yeah, send a note at support@fantasyguru.com. Say you want the VIP package. Ted will hook you up. I don't know if the 50% deal is still going or not. Probably if you could twist Ted's arm, you could get that. And when Cracker Jack says the VIP package, it's everything. Every podcast, every live stream, every sport, every package, everything. The VIP Platinum package. Check that out over at fantasyguru.com. Angelo is saying, I'm tired of hearing about Roki Sasaki and where he signs. Well, I get it. Looks like it's down to the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Blue Jays. We'll have a resolution next week, so that'll finally be gone. Kyle said, Ray, great job filling in for Jeff. Hope was well with Jeff and his family. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you listening yesterday, Kyle. We'll try to run it back today, Justin Fensterman and I, today and tomorrow. As I noted, Friday, Ted and I. And as you said, we're all wishing Jeff the best in the family. Kyle said, Darnold seemed to look downfield, but did not see downfield, if that makes sense. Once he got rattled, the pressure, he was cooked. Seeing ghosts, man. It's tough. It's tough when you've got pressure. It's tough to complete passes when you're off schedule, right? And that was a significant issue for him last night. Derek Feeble says, "Nice work, Greg. Give Jeff our best when you talk to him." Absolutely, Elite Mafia strong. Thank you, Derek. Really appreciate that. We're doing our best there to support Jeff because he obviously needs it at this time. All right. Overall rankings lists are useless. There's an article about this over at fantasyguru.com. I'm going to give you what it says anyway. So we're behind the scenes for those of you that haven't subscribed. Again, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Sign up for any of the products right now. The draft guide is a full season product. So if you sign up now, you get coverage throughout the entirety of the Major League Baseball season. If you're going to draft off an overall list, just draft off an ADP list. It's just the wrong way to do it. And I went in even more depth in this because I spent 10 minutes for each of these two topics yesterday on the Elite Sports Show. But here's basically what I said yesterday. And again, there's articles about both of these topics over at fantasyguru.com. The thing that an overall rankings list lacks is context. Okay. And like I said, if you're going to draft that way, just draft off an ADP list and good luck. A lot of times people will put a team together and they'll be excited about their team. And then 3 months in, their team isn't doing well. And they'll be like, "Ray, talk to me. What the hell's going on here?" And if, 7 guys are hurt, 14 guys are hurt, okay. But if you're basically healthy and you look at your team and you're trying to figure out what the problem is, what probably happened is you put the team together incorrectly. Not that each individual player is a bum or anything like that, but the team, remember, we're playing categories here. And if we're playing in a roto league, we need batting average, home runs, RBIs, runs scored, steals. We need ERA, WHIP, strikeouts, wins, and saves. We need to fill 10 categories, and we need to fill positions: catcher, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, outfield, UT, and then the pitching. So we need to fill a bunch of categories, and we need to fill a bunch of positions. So if you have your overall list and you end up walking away from your first five picks with 4 outfielders, that might be great. You might have 4 guys that are going to average 20-20, hitting 285. That's a banging start to your draft. If you start 5 outfielders, okay. If you start 4 outfielders, sure, it's okay to use one at the UT spot, sure. But do you really want to lock up your UT spot that early? Do you want to be so heavily invested at the outfield position so early that you've ignored the other spots? If you're following a top overall rankings list, that might be how your team turns out. It might go in the other direction. If you're following a top overall rankings list from somebody, you might end up with 3 of your first 5 picks being pitchers. That's not where you want to be. That's not the right way to build a team. So overall rankings lists, all they do is basically rank players on one scale. And we shouldn't be ranking players on one scale because we have positions we have to worry about. We have categories we have to worry about. So it's much more important to build your team. I need an infielder. I need an outfielder. I need a pitcher. I need some power. I need some speed. You got to build your team that way versus just taking a look at an overall rankings list. But Ray, the overall rankings list tells me who's best. It does, in theory, tell you who's best. But it doesn't tell you the specificity that is required for your team to be good. It doesn't do any good for you to have your first 4 picks be outfielders. Again, if you're starting 3 outfielders. Even if you're starting 5, you've ignored every other position. Could work, sure, but then you're starting to dive deeper at shortstop. You're starting to dive deeper at third base. What is your relief pitchers going to look like? What's your starting pitchers going to look like? So the bottom line is, don't ever draft off a top overall list because it won't tell you, oh my gosh, you have too many outfielders. It won't tell you you've got tons of speed, but you don't have enough power. It won't tell you you've got power and speed. That's great, but your batting average sucks. It won't tell you that because that's not the goal of a top overall list. Don't draft off a top overall list. It's not 1997. Don't do that. The right way to draft is the next piece here, which is the tiering model. So instead of saying, I'm going to follow this list 1 to 250 and just draft off the list, what we say is, I'm going to use the tiering model. Now, what the tiering model says is, let's use the shortstop position just as a baseline. I think I did this yesterday too. Let's use Mookie Betts and Francisco Lindor, which are the same 2 guys I used yesterday. That's boring. Let's not use those 2 guys. Let's use Bobby Witt. How about this? Trey Turner and Bobby Witt. Okay. We all want Bobby Witt instead of Trey Turner. Right? Okay. Can we win with Trey Turner as our shortstop? Of course we can win with Trey Turner as our shortstop. Absolutely. Is Trey Turner somebody that we can start on a weekly basis and feel really good about? Absolutely. Is he going to provide the statistical performance of Bobby Witt? No, he's not. But if he's fully healthy and gets 700 plate appearances, it's not going to be that different. Now, again, he might get 550 plate appearances, so you have to factor that in. But the bottom line is what we really want as we pull back on a broader scale. What we really want is to have a first or second tier shortstop as our starter. And whether that's Trey Turner or Francisco Lindor or Mookie Betts or Bobby Witt, we want to have one of these guys on our team. We don't want to end up in the Xander Bogart zone for our starter, right? That's not where we want to be. So what the tiering model says is that it groups like performers together, okay? It doesn't say which one's a better batting average guy, which one's a better steals guy. Let's go back to Lindor and Betts. Lindor and Betts might be on the same tier for you when you're tiering this position up. And you say to yourself, Mookie Betts is going to give me a better batting average. Francisco Lindor is going to steal more bases. Okay, so we know that they're on the same tier. Overall, their production is going to be very similar. Like if we graded it out, each guy's going to be a $30 player, right? Betts with more average, Lindor with more steals. Okay. Roughly, though, they're the same guy. They're going to play every day. They're going to give you that $30 performance. So you put them on the same tier. Then you go drop down to the next level. Then the next level ends up being the Corey Seagers of the world, right? And the Trey Turners of the world. The guys that, for whatever, Trey Turner's case, there's health concerns. Corey Seager's case, there's no speed and some health concerns. So that guy drops him down to the next tier. So basically what you do is you take like level performers and you group them together. And instead of saying to yourself, I've got to get Mookie Betts, you say to yourself, I want to get Betts or Lindor. Instead of saying, I got to get Lindor, you could say to yourself, I want to get Lindor or Turner, right? Because I want someone on that higher tier, but it doesn't have to be player A or B. So it opens you up a little bit to the player pool. What it also does for you is if you're looking at the shortstop position, let's say the third base position as an example, and you have 10 guys at each position that are on the first two tiers. There is no number that's a limit for tiers. Catcher could have one guy in tier one. Outfield could have 7. Like there's no artificial number that has to be used for the tiers. But let's say we're looking at third base and shortstop. And let's just say for the sake of argument, there are 10 guys on the top two tiers at both positions. If it's our turn to pick and 3 of the top 10 guys at shortstop are still available, but only 1 of the top 10 guys at third base is still available, the tiering model tells you it's time to take the third base because there's only 1 third baseman left that you trust, and there's 3 at shortstop. What are the odds of 1 of the 3 shortstops falling back to you with your next pick? Much higher than the odds are of the only third baseman falling back to you. So the tiering model also helps steer you at the draft. So instead of saying, well, yeah, Ray, but that third baseman, he's overall player 52 and that shortstop's overall player 49. I got to take the short. No, the tiering model tells you to reverse it. The odds of you getting that shortstop if you wait are much better than the odds of you getting the third baseman if you wait. So the tiering model also aids you at putting your team together. So I would really encourage everyone to give it a consideration. I'm more than happy to answer more questions as we move forward here about it. Again, there's articles on both that explain it a little more clearly if my description was a little wonky for you. But check it out. Don't ever draft off a top overall list. I think that's the moral of the story. Don't do that. If you do, your team is not going to be balanced. You're not going to have the context of putting together a squad that really works. You'll be strong over here and weak over here. Either it's positionally or category-wise. Don't do it. Put a team together in a more thoughtful manner, which for me is the tiering model. So there's a review of baseball. Again, we'll talk baseball every day here on the show. I won't be here on this show tomorrow. Justin Fensham will be hosting on Wednesdays, as he always does. As I've noted on the show multiple times already, I will be on SiriusXM with Justin today from 3 to 6 Eastern. I'll be on Sirius tomorrow with Justin from 3 to 6 Eastern. So you'll still be able to see me for 3 hours tomorrow. You just get 4 hours with me Monday, Tuesday, and Friday this week. Now, in terms of what we're doing the rest of the day today, you can see it there on the screen. We're talking some football. We'll continue to take your comments in the chat room. A lot of good comments here today. Appreciate that. It's that time. It's about halfway through the show on a Tuesday. Halfway through the show on a Tuesday means our man Armando Marsal is ready to join us. Armando, you can find his work over at fantasyguru.com. Duh. You can find all his work there. He's always involved. He's starting to ramp up his basketball coverage right now. He's still doing football coverage. His podcast, Mind of Marsal, as well as this podcast, Fantasy Sports Daily, they can both be found if you go to fantasyguru.com and you click that Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. You can find this show and his show there, as well as the others on the Elite Plus network. You can get all of his football coverage if you send a note to support at fantasyguru.com. You can get all of his basketball coverage if you sign up for the MVP plan at fantasyguru.com. Click that click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, and you can catch him here with us every week on the show. And a little birdie told me he might be doing double duty. So we'll bring in Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com here on a Tuesday. And Armando, I'm hearing might be on Wednesdays too. Is that true?
I believe so. Yes, I will be. I'll be joining Justin tomorrow as well. We'll be talking. He and I will be talking hoops. Still be joining every Tuesday as well to talk football with you. Like I always say, it's one of my favorite times of the week where we get to chat, we get to talk some football and just answer questions. So it's always good to talk at 12:30 here every Tuesday.
Appreciate that, Armando. Thank you for coming on. I know the listeners appreciate it too. Armando_Marsal on Twitter X as well if you want to follow him there. I will admit, I'm kind of scattered this week. I'm doing a ton of stuff. We did talk quarterbacks last week, right? We did a review of 2024. Okay, good.
Yes, we did.
I didn't check my notes, and I was like, I think it's
we did.
Okay, I'm not repeating myself. Good. So last week we talked quarterbacks. We're going to go, a position per week here as we wrap up 2024. And so today it's running back time. And, we've got a lot to talk about at the running back position. I wanted to start with Jahmyr Gibbs because his first 2 years in the NFL have been spectacular. Obviously, the Lions had, a magical season. They're trying to, win the Super Bowl and all that. Even with the presence of David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs has been massive in terms of his fantasy potential. Montgomery will be back next year. Gibbs will be back next year. Gibbs a top 3 running back, even with the presence of Montgomery scoring double-digit touchdowns. Can you go that high with him?
So I think that's risky, right? Because if you look at the numbers, like if you look at the first 10 weeks of the season, he was RB15, RB9, RB25, RB12, RB22, RB1, RB9, RB18, RB17. Later on in the season, I think Montgomery being out, right, really helped him. I'm not saying he wasn't producing. Clearly, he was a certified RB2 with RB1 upside, even with Montgomery there. But then that's when you start seeing a lot more of the top 10. You saw RB8, RB4, RB21, RB11, RB2, RB7, RB2, RB1. So we're seeing it right there, right? The numbers are very different with Montgomery off the field. I still think you're getting a high floor every week, some with a high seating, but I do think you're going to be paying premium price, right? Especially after this year. A lot of people are just going to look at the overall production. They're going to look at the overall season. And you might not get that top 3, top 4 production each and every week. It's not as consistent as you saw it later down the stretch here with Montgomery off the field. So, yes, I'm still looking at him as an RB1. Am I going to be taking him as a top 3 pick? Probably not. I don't think I want to pay a top 3 pick. Of course, if Montgomery's out of the picture, sure. But if he's not, I just don't. I can't do it.
Armando, you're a Dolphins guy. You're down there in Florida. And, Devon Achane has had a really great start to his NFL career. Last year, he only played 11 games because of injury. This season, he made it through the season, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if we've removed the concerns about his health, but, he did a much better job in year 2. He's basically been the same performer on a per-game basis in both seasons. But this year, his reception total went bananas.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Achane because, he's going to be drafted as a running back 1, of course. He might go top 5 for some people, especially if they're in a PPR setup. 78 catches, though. Is that sustainable? I mean, Tua Tagovailoa in that offense, they do throw a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage. Talk to us about Devon Achane moving into year 3.
I think with this situation, you have to pay very close attention to what happens in Miami, right? Because right now there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, with what's going to happen here next season. Tyreek Hill said he wanted out, then he takes it back. There's concerns about, is McDaniel, I know they gave him an extension, but is he fit for the job? Tua, his health is a big issue. I think the fact that he didn't finish out the season, that speaks volumes. Like, this is a contract that's very friendly. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes here. I'm not saying they're not going to have Tua under center next year. Tyreek Hill is not going to be there. I'm not saying that, but this is a situation where I'm paying very close attention. I think that so long as everything stays in place as it is now, I think this is very sustainable. This is a team that I think I saw 25% of Tua Tagovailoa's passes were behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
That's going to be phenomenal for someone like Achane. That's what he does. Like, he's not, if you look at the numbers closely, he's not someone that was carrying the ball 20 plus times a week. He was not even carrying the ball 15 plus times a week. Yep. He was producing at a high clip because of his involvement. 87 targets. That's a big role in the offense in the passing game. So I think so long as the offense stays intact, you can definitely take them at that high price tag. But if you start seeing some changes, it's changes in the scheme. I don't think it's going to happen. Changes in the scheme, changes in the quarterback position. His numbers dropped off significantly with Tua off the field in the passing game. It wasn't the same production with Tua on the field.
Armando Marsal of FantasyGuru.com. One of the greatest pass-catching running backs of all time is Alvin Kamara. He had 80 catches each of his first 4 seasons. Then in years 5 and 6, really dipped, and it's like, age is catching up to him and all that. Last 2 years, he hasn't got to 80 catches, but he's had 75 and 68. He's only played 13 and 14 games, so clearly on pace to surpass 80 catches in both those seasons with ease if he were to play a full season of games. The Saints' offense is a mess. It looks like Derek Carr will be the quarterback next year. They gotta figure out the receiving core because all these guys are hurt. Maybe Olave and Rashid Shaheed are healthy next year and everything's fine. But there's a lot of questions around that offense too, including Kamara with his advancing age and all of that. Huge signs of concern with him. More of the same with him. Are you still comfortable taking him as one of the top backs off the board in 2025?
It really depends on where he's going, right? Because I think we were very, very aggressive with him this year because of the discount you were getting on him, right? So it really depends on where he's going next season. He's coming off a year where durability was a concern, right? It was an issue. You mentioned it. He's played 13 and 14 games the last couple of seasons. Coming off a 228 carry season. That's his second most of his career and the most he's had since 2021. So the fact that he could not stay completely healthy given that workload, then another year older, it really depends for me where he starts going in drafts. If he's still coming off the board, because if people are concerned, it's coming off the board at a nice value like he was this year, sure, I'll take some chances. But if I'm paying premium price because, everyone's chasing that ceiling, I might go in a different direction at the running back position.
Armando Marsal of FantasyGuru.com. You look at Jonathan Taylor in the last 3 games of the season, 520 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Massive end of the season. And as a result, you look at his numbers, it's not often that a guy has 300 carries, 1,400 yards, and double-digit touchdowns, and everyone kind of thinks he sucks. And I'm not saying he doesn't. They don't think he sucks. They don't think he's a running back one. They drafted him. They're disappointed. And I get it because it was heavily the last 3 games involved here. But he had 300 carries and 1,400 yards in 14 games, Armando. This could have been a 1,700-yard, 15 touchdown season if he had been healthy. Where are we at with Jonathan Taylor? Is it he's still a running back one and you're feeling great about it? Because I think some people aren't anymore.
I am 100% feeling great about it as an RB1 for him. I mean, you even go back to the beginning of the season, he had some pretty good games. He rushed for over 100 yards a couple of times early in the year. I think he went on a 3-game streak with rushing touchdowns. Yeah, so in the first 5 weeks, he scored a rushing touchdown in 4 of the 5 games, right? Like he was producing pretty solid numbers there. So I still think that, he's an RB1. I'm going to be drafting him as an RB1. I think this offense needs to improve next year, right? Like, I think this is an offense that if they continue to build that offensive line, they have some nice supporting cast. I don't know where they're standing with Anthony Richardson and what his, if he's for sure their future. I think that's still up in the air, right? I think that the verdict is still on him. So, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and draft Jonathan Taylor as an RB1. I'm buying him. I know the lack of pass, the pass involvement, right? That scares people away. I don't care. I'll take 20 carries for 100 yards and the touchdown very happily as my RB1 on an average basis, or not average, but more often than not, So yeah, I'm buying him next year for sure.
What about Breece Hall? This is one of those scenarios where we've got a young player who clearly, is or should be the alpha back on his team. And for the majority of this season, he was, but there was times where he wasn't utilized and the backups are getting the ball. We don't know what they're doing at the quarterback spot with the Jets. We don't know what they're doing at the coaching spot. How do we evaluate what we have seen from Breece Hall to date and moving forward? Because there's a lot of uncertainty with him and the offense and what it's going to look like moving forward.
So I think with him, when you're looking at it from a redraft perspective, you're going to have to really wait and see what happens here. Like, you're going to have to take the wait and see approach. If you're drafting now, you basically drafting blindly when it comes to him, because you just really don't know what's going to happen. I like the idea in Dynasty in investing in the talent of Breece Hall, because I do think you're going to get him to cents on the dollar, because a lot of people share the same concerns. A lot of people are, kind of over it with what happened this year. They were expecting a much better season maybe, and they didn't come to fruition. So I think that's where I want to buy him at a lower cost. In redraft, I'm going to take the wait and see approach, because I think there's going to be so many changes, and this could be an entirely new look going into 2025. And so right now it's very difficult to read that situation and engage it, because I do think he should be the workload, the guy that's getting all of the touches in that backfield. He has that talent. He's a dual threat running back. He can catch passes in the backfield, explosive runner, really good vision. I mean, he checks off pretty much all of the boxes. It's just a matter, are the opportunities going to be there? And we just don't know right now.
Joe Mixon's got a contract for a couple years still with the Texans. And the Texans had a lot of things go wrong this year, chiefly among them, obviously, the injuries to Diggs, to Dell, the lack of passing compared to year one for C.J. Stroud. Joe Mixon, though, for the most part, I mean, second year in a row, 1,000 yards rushing. He had 11 rushing touchdowns. He was involved as a pass catcher. He's an aging player. He doesn't exactly have huge burst anymore. We know that. There's a lot of workload here. As of right now, and the offseason could change this, right? But as of right now, sure looks like he's going to be getting 18 touches a game again next season. Joe Mixon, a really comfortable running back too, even with the concerns?
Yes, I think so. You're just chasing those opportunities, right? And he's going to be running behind a good offensive line. I think, like I said, I think this Houston team is going to take a step forward next year. I think this is kind of they kind of stalled this year. They dealt with injuries. I think a healthy Houston Texans offense would have been much better this year, a little bit more productive. I think we're going to see a much better Houston team. And like you said, like, he's going to get those opportunities. And the one thing I will say, like, you just have to, with a guy like Mixon, he missed a couple of games this year, right? So, like, with a guy like Mixon, make sure you're handcuffing, right? Like, make sure you're handcuffing, because there is a chance that he misses a couple of games. If you go back, he's missed some time, now. So he's played 14, 17, and 14 games. So he's missed some time here the last couple of seasons. So if he misses a couple of games, just be ready for it. Like, that's the kind of, how I approach those kind of risky running backs like that.
Armando, what about the situation with Bucky Irving? Because if you looked at his numbers, you just pulled back and said, this guy was a rookie. These numbers, wow, he almost caught 50 passes. He ran for 1,000 yards. He had 8 rushing touchdowns. These are huge numbers. He wasn't even the lead back for half the season. And, in this the last game they played, they lost, obviously, to the Bucs in the playoffs. Rachaad White, ghost town, man. I mean, he barely even touched the ball. He had like 3 touches all game. Is Bucky White the next big thing? I mean, is that what we're looking at? Are we looking at an even bigger season in year 2 for him?
I think what happened here is early in the season, they were going with the guy that knows the system, the veteran, and they kind of eased in Irving. We saw a committee for a period of time, and then Bucky Irving took over. I think Bucky Irving is the rather running back here. I think he's the one that's going to get the primary opportunities. But I think so long as White is in the picture, there's going to be a role for White. It's not going to be a solidified one. It's not going to be huge. I don't think it's going to cut too much into Bucky Irving. But, I do think we're going to get, 15, 16 opportunities per game is pretty safe for Bucky Irving, so long as things stay the same here. So, yeah, he's someone that I'm going to be investing in. But, again, it's all going to come down to pricing, right? Because a lot of people are going to be buying the hype. A lot of people are going to be buying the excitement. So if the price gets too inflated, I generally don't like to buy players at their seeding prices unless it's a player I'm absolutely 100% about, like a Ja'Marr Chase, like someone like that where I'm all in no matter what. Sure. But if I have to pay a premium price for Bucky Irving and I'm getting a discount on, someone say like Joe Mixon or Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to take the discount on Joe Mixon or Jonathan Taylor in that instance.
It's really interesting when you look at Tony Pollard, who's at the other end, right? Bucky Irving just starting his career. Pollard's been around for a long time. For years, Pollard looked like the better back than Ezekiel Elliott, according to a lot of people, more explosive and all that, but he was a support back. Then he got a chance in his last year in Dallas, or last 2 years in Dallas, to take over. And then he was the lead guy again in Tennessee. So now we're looking at Tony Pollard, who started his career slowly in terms of big numbers, rushing for 1,000 yards each of the last 3 years. He's done it with multiple teams. He's caught more than 40 passes each of the last 2 years. Everyone loves Tajay Spears, but he just can't stay healthy. That poor guy can't stay on the field. Pollard's going to be back next season in an offense they need to reinvigorate. Who's the quarterback? And they got all kinds of things going on with Tennessee. Did you see enough out of Pollard to look at him and think he's a solid running back 2 next year? Do you have concerns with Tony Pollard? Because, again, he kind of broke down at the end and kind of limped to the finish line. And that part of his game has kind of dogged him the whole time. Like, can he handle the workload? 3 years in a row, he's been pretty good.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a good return. I think it's a volume-based play. I think you're going to get a nice weekly floor. I do agree with you that, durability throughout the entirety of the season is going to be a concern. He is, a smaller back at the end of the day. So, and they do have someone that they can lean on, but Spears dealt with a lot of injuries himself this year. So it's just one of those situations where I'm okay with investing in someone like Pollard. I think he's going to continue to be an RB2, solidified RB2, so long as he's healthy. I think the opportunities are going to be there. Obviously, when Spears is active, it's going to cut into the ceiling, right? It's going to cut into the upside for Pollard. I still think you're going to get a nice floor, but that ceiling, that upside, it's not going to be there, or not as high as it is when Spears is out. Like we know that there's going to be even more opportunities when Spears is out. So I would just say that, again, it goes back to like a Bucky Irving situation where you're getting a floor of 15 to 16 opportunities per week, and that's what you're going to get from Pollard. Most weeks going to be 17, 18. With Spears is out, you're going to get upwards of 20. So it's just that's the kind of running back you're going to be invested in when you're invested in Pollard.
Going back to Pollard's old team, the Cowboys, it took them forever to determine who the lead back was. They finally settled on Rico Dowdle. And I don't think anyone profiling Rico Dowdle says, wow. The numbers don't say wow. But if you look at his last 7 games, he averaged 20 carries for like 97 yards, which we'll take, right? This is very much Joe Mixon-like stuff from Rico Dowdle. Do you think Rico Dowdle's still the lead back for the Cowboys next season? I mean, Jerry Jones loves him some running backs, and though Dowdle was good, he doesn't profile as being anything better than he was this season.
I would be surprised if he is their starting running back next year. I'll be honest. I'd be very surprised. I think that this is a team that's going to make a lot of moves, in my opinion, here. And you're going to see a lot of changes. So I expect them to go out there and get a running back. I expect them to go out there and make some changes. If he is, you can't ignore what happened, though. Like, that's the thing. If they are comfortable enough, you can't ignore what happened here because he's going to get the opportunity. So it's one of those double-edged swords where right now, if you're drafting, you don't have that answer. But later down after the draft, with free agency, all of that stuff, you'll have more clarity on that. But if they do indeed give him the opportunity and they do indeed make him their starting, don't say, "Oh, I'm not going to invest in him." It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it's volume and there was production there. So and keep in mind, he did this without quarterback presence, right? Sure. That's important. He did this without a quarterback. Imagine having a passing threat, how much easier the opportunities would have been for him. So there's a lot to, I like watching the end of the year. That's why I like Taylor a lot. I like kind of paying attention. I'm not saying that's all of my stuff, but I like seeing how players close out the season, right? And they close out strong. I kind of see what happens free agency, see what the teams do. Do they believe in it? Do they not? And kind of go from there. So I'm going to be paying very close attention to that. What they do there in Dallas.
Armando Marsal, fantasyguru.com. Let's talk a little bit about the game last night. Armando, the Rams defeated the Vikings 27-9. I broke it all down at the start of the show. A lot of comments in the chat room. Obviously, it's one of the bigger storylines. What's the future of Sam Darnold? Is he back with the Vikings? Is he with somebody else? Is J.J. McCarthy the quarterback? Like I said it earlier, I mean, the dude threw for over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, and Vikings fans want nothing to do with him. It's like, he was 5th in the league in passing yards and 5th in passing touchdowns, and they think he's the worst quarterback in the league, it sounds like.
I think it's all going to come down to if the price is right, that the deal will get done, right? If I doubt he's going to get from them market value, given some of their options, right? They draft a young quarterback in McCarthy. They supposedly really like him. Daniel Jones, he's in the mix too. Yeah, he's there. I'm not saying he's going to be their guy or he's their savior, but he's there. But I really do think that it's a matter of if they can get it done for the right price. That's how I see him staying. If it's too much or if he gets a better offer somewhere else, I don't see him staying. I think that's why they didn't extend him, right? I think they wanted to see how far into the postseason they took. I'm not surprised they lost. I'm really not surprised they lost. The Rams have a very good pass rush. and they took notes from the Detroit game. He looked frightened in the Detroit game. He looked lost. He wasn't going through his reads, wasn't going through his progressions. The same thing, and they do have to fix a little bit of that offensive line in Minnesota too, right? So I think Minnesota has some things to fix there, but I'm interested to see where he ends up.
Isn't it? I mean, really, if we pull back though, and this is the thing that football fascinates me. Everyone hates Mike Tomlin. They want to fire Mike Tomlin.
I don't understand.
Everyone hates Sam Darnold, who threw for 35 touchdowns and led his team to a 14-3 record. Totally forgotten. No one even remembers that occurred. Now, to me, it's just fandom in the NFL is so interesting. I don't get the sense that it's the same in other sports. I just, it's like you're the best, and 2 weeks later you're the worst. It's just Sam Darnold. It'll be fascinating to see what happens here because you can paint the picture that you just did, and I mentioned earlier in the show very clearly that okay, but he threw for 35 touchdowns and they won 14 games. Like there's that side of it too. Oh,
listen, don't get me wrong. I will happily take him as my quarterback down here in Miami. Like I would happily do it. I'm not a Tua guy. I'm 100% honest with you. Like durability is one of the many reasons, but yeah, I would happily take Darnold here as my quarterback in Miami. I don't like. You have to understand, like he's not elite, right? He's not Joe Burrow. He's not, but there are only a handful of those kind of quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Like you said, like Darnold did good. Like he had a good season. He struggled under pressure in a big situation. And I think that's what a lot of people are placing the emphasis on. Right. Understandably so, because at the end of the day, you want your quarterbacks to excel in those high pressure situations. One of the reasons why I don't like to, he's failed in a lot of those high pressure situations as well. So yes, I understand that, but he played in a tough division, number one, and he had a phenomenal record. I mean, the Packers they're a playoff team, right? Like they were a playoff team. Yeah. Detroit got the first round bye. I mean, Chicago was not great, but they're a talented team. Like, it's not like, so it's a tough division that they played in. They did really well in a tough division. They won a lot of good games. Like, for me, if the price is right or not, I think that's how he ends up there because of their options. But I think if he goes in free agency, they don't pay him, he'll get a job real quick in the NFL.
On the Rams side of things, I mean, I was talking about this earlier. Stafford threw for 209 yards and 2 scores last night. The 209 yards was a 4-game high. As good as the offense appears on the surface when you talk about the talent they have, the production hasn't been there. They're living off their defense right now, to be honest. And Cooper Kupp,
I have no idea either.
5 catches in 4 games. Like what? And I said this earlier. The Rams can't win with no pass. You can't win without a passing attack. I mean, let's be honest about this. And it's Puka Nacua. Where's Cooper Kupp? What the hell's going on?
I have no idea. I am lost for words, honestly, as well. I'm like you. I don't understand it. Yeah. Truly don't. I thought, okay, well, maybe they're just kind of, holding him off for postseason. Like, that's what I thought. They're kind of like, not showing their hand too much and letting their defense, since they've been winning games with their defense and whatnot, they clinch. Oh, yeah, I am stunned. I'm very interested to see what happens here. Unless there's something that comes out after the season where he's playing hurt or there's something going on that we don't know behind the scenes, I truly don't understand it because he was such a big part. And from one week to another, it was completely gone. Again,
five catches in 4. He's got 10 targets in 4 games.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He had three targets. Yeah. Like you really don't see that from Cooper Kupp. For me, there's no explanation to that. Like in my opinion, there's something more behind the scenes that we're not being informed about, and eventually might come out. And maybe it doesn't, but I think that there's something else going on there.
Finally, before we let you run here, Armando, I said earlier, just kind of flippantly, we've got the Commanders and the Lions in one matchup, the Rams and the Eagles, the Texans and the Chiefs, and then we got the Bills and the Ravens. Is the winner of the Bills-Ravens winning the Super Bowl? Or is it still the Chiefs, still the favorite, the Lions? Like, I'm not going to hold you to it, but is the Bills-Ravens game the best? And what are the odds that the winner of that game wins the Super Bowl?
I think that's the best game of the week, and I think that game is going to come down to turnovers. I think the team that doesn't turn the ball over is the one that's going to win that game. Do I think that they're going to be the winners of the Super Bowl? No, I still won't rule out the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a very good defense. Like we're used to seeing an explosive offense. In years past, not recent years, but in years past, the offense that just completely points on anyone. That's not the team that they are now. They're a very good defense. They have arguably the best quarterback in football. They got, Brown is back now, like an additional weapon. Like, this is a dangerous team, in my opinion. I won't rule them out. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. I do think that it'll be Detroit on the other side. I do think Detroit's the team to beat in the NFC, but I do think it's wide open in the AFC. I think any of those three, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City, any of those three could represent the AFC. Now, I will say this: until they beat Mahomes, it just hasn't been done yet, right?
Everyone's Lions. It's like, I get it, but
I'm never counting on Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like, that's a good comment. It's like Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Like, that's what it is, right? Of today's day and age, like, that's what we're seeing. And they've been there before. They've done it multiple times. I can't count them out. I know a lot of people are counting them out, but I'm not. I'm simply not. If I had to bet, it's going to be Kansas City and Detroit in the Super Bowl. If I had to bet.
Armando Marsal of FantasyGuru.com joins us every Tuesday. Now he's joining us, I guess, Wednesdays as well. He'll be back tomorrow with Justin Fensterman to talk hoops. Talk to us through your schedule now, Armando. You've kind of given them the updates every week, but just lock it in one last time. Still dabbling in football with the focus starting to go toward basketball?
Yep, I'm in NBA today and tomorrow. I'll be in Discord as well, an hour before tip-off. So Justin and I will be there. Tomorrow I'll be starting every Wednesday now as well, coming on the show here, talking with Justin. We're going to be talking hoops. We still got the staff picks, obviously, there for the playoffs. I still got my DFS breakdown, which will break down every game. It's not slate, I'm just breaking down every single game. It's not slate dependent or anything. So that's out every Friday. Mind the Marsal podcast out every Friday. And you can find me on Discord, answer your questions. Even when I'm not on schedule, I'll be in the NBA. So feel free to tag me up in the NFL if you ever have any questions. If a lot of people are getting ready now for their dynasty and stuff. So we're ready to roll. We're ready to roll for those who are. So you can find all of my work obviously at Fantasy Guru. So everyone knows that though.
Do you ever, by the way, the only thing you didn't mention there was baseball. You're doing everything else. Do you ever hit spring training games up?
I do not. I follow and watch baseball more than I give more than I say. I really do. In fact, baseball is my favorite sport to watch and sit down and enjoy. It's such a slow paced game. I really enjoy just everything about baseball. Right. I actually played in a fantasy baseball league as well. So I'm just, I'm not up to speed with everyone just yet. I took a lot of years off the game, but yes, I do enjoy baseball a lot. I do go to opening day every year. That's been a tradition we kind of started. We again after COVID and stuff we had stopped, but that's something that we do. So my son, he likes to go for his birthday. Last year we went for his birthday and put his name on the Jumbotron and stuff like that. Yeah. So did little things like that, and we've gone there before, like to little events where he's played on the field and things with his little league teams and stuff. But no, I'm never going to spring training because there used to be a spring training facility right by my house, but they tore all that down now, and it's just like school and baseball fields and stuff, but it's not a spring training facility.
I've had my name on the Jumbotron for my birthday.
Nice.
And not as a kid, as an adult. My lady got me on there at the Sharks game once and at a Giants game too. So you don't have to just be 10 years old, folks. You can do it as an adult too.
No, of course not. Hey, that's cool no matter what.
Yeah, right? That's me.
Yeah.
Armando Marsal of FantasyGuru.com. Armando, thanks for your help today, your advice today, your comments, all that kind of stuff. The energy, all of it was good. So let's do it again next week, and the folks can catch you again tomorrow with Justin at 12 o'clock Eastern.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me on. Everyone have a great day.
You got it. The show will again be on 12 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Armando will be on about 12:30, I think. I think it's about the same schedule that Justin runs there. So he'll be on tomorrow talking hoops. I'll be on Elite Sports today, tomorrow, and Friday. The next 2 days with Justin, today and tomorrow with Justin. Friday with Ted Schuster. We're expecting Jeff back on Monday. For Armando, I'm Ray. Tell a friend about this free show, Fantasy Sports Daily. You can watch us live. You can download the podcast. Enjoy the conversation. Join the conversation with us over at fantasyguru.com. Thanks for listening today. We'll see you again tomorrow.